She buried her Top Gun past for 12 years, hiding as a quiet yoga teacher by the beach. Then one afternoon, an F-22 pilot lost control above the crowd and sent one desperate SOS on the radio. Nobody moved. Then she stepped forward, and the sky remembered her name. Before you watch full story, comment below from which country are you watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more amazing stories. Sarah Mitchell woke up every morning at 5 and ran along the beach until her lungs hurt. She lived in a small coastal town where nobody knew her real name. To her neighbors, she was just the quiet woman who taught yoga above the old bait shop. She kept her hair short, wore plain clothes, and never talked about her past. For 12 years, she had lived like this, small and simple, and that was exactly how she wanted it. But under her plain clothes, Sarah carried a secret. 12 years ago, she was not Sarah the yoga teacher. She was Captain Sarah Mitchell, one of the best fighter pilots the Air Force had ever trained. Her call sign was Nightingale. She had once flown the fastest jets in the sky and taught other pilots how to survive impossible situations. Then, one training accident changed everything. Her closest friend and wingman, Captain Daniel Reyes, died in a crash that was never fully explained. After that day, Sarah signed a paper she did not want to sign, packed her bags, and disappeared from the Air Force forever. She told herself she was protecting people. In truth, she was running from a truth too heavy to speak out loud. Every year, on the day of the local air show, Sarah walked to the fence at the edge of the airfield and watched the jets fly. She never told anyone why she came. She just stood there, hands in her pockets, watching machines she used to fly climb into a sky she was no longer allowed to touch. This year was no different. She arrived early, found her usual spot near the back of the crowd, and waited. The air show was full of noise and laughter. Children ran past with toy planes in their hands. A food truck sold lemonade for $2. A group of young men stood near the fence, laughing loudly and taking photos. One of them noticed Sarah standing alone in her plain gray hoodie and nudged his friend. "Look at her," he said, grinning. "She looks lost. This isn't a yoga retreat, lady." His friends laughed. Sarah said nothing. She had learned long ago that silence was stronger than any answer. She turned her eyes back to the sky, where the jets were beginning their display. A woman in a wide sun hat sat nearby in a folding chair, a book open on her lap that she was not really reading. She looked at Sarah and smiled kindly. "Some view, isn't it?" the woman said. "It is," Sarah answered quietly. "You come here every year?" Sarah paused. "Every year," she said. The woman studied her for a moment. "You have the look of someone who used to be part of something bigger than watching it from the ground." Sarah's chest tightened. "I used to be a lot of things," she said, and left it there. The woman did not push further. She simply nodded and went back to her book. It was, Sarah thought, a small kindness, and she was grateful for it. The next fighter jet roared onto the runway. It was an F-22 Raptor, one of the newest and fastest jets in the fleet. The announcer's voice came over the speakers, introducing the young pilot flying today's demonstration. Sarah barely listened to the name. She had stopped memorizing the names of strangers in cockpits a long time ago. It hurt less that way. The jet climbed high into the blue sky, rolling smoothly through its first loop. The crowd cheered. Sarah watched closely, the way she always did, her eyes tracking every movement out of old habit. Something in her chest reacted before her mind caught up. The nose of the jet lifted a little too sharp. Her pulse quickened. Then it happened. A loud crack split the air, sharp as breaking metal. The jet wobbled violently, tilting at an angle no aircraft should ever hold. Black smoke began pouring from its left engine, thin at first, then thick and dark. The crowd gasped as one. A woman nearby pulled her child close. A man shouted that the jet was going down. The radio tower crackled overhead, connected to the loudspeakers. The young pilot's voice broke through, high and full of fear. "Mayday, mayday. I've lost control. My left engine is gone. I'm going down." Panic spread through the crowd like fire. Phones rose into the air, filming the disaster. A volunteer in an orange vest froze in place, her clipboard slipping from her hands. From the control tower, a desperate voice shouted across the field. "Is there anyone here who can fly a Raptor? Anyone?" Silence answered. Nobody moved. Nobody dared to step forward. Sarah's whole body went still. Not frozen, still, the kind of stillness that comes right before action. Her hand closed tightly around a small metal keychain in her pocket, shaped like a tiny jet, its paint worn smooth from years of touching it. She thought of Daniel, of the sound of his voice cutting off during that final training flight 12 years ago. She thought of the promise she had never gotten the chance to keep for him. She would not stand here and watch another pilot fall out of the sky. She stepped over the barrier. Her sneakers hit the tarmac with purpose. The crowd around her parted in confusion, murmuring, as this plain unremarkable woman walked toward the control tower like she had every right in the world to be there. "Look at her," one of the young men from before called out, laughing nervously. "She thinks she's going to save the day. Yoga lady's going to fix a jet with deep breathing." Sarah did not look back. She pushed open the door to the control tower. Inside, the room was full of noise and panic. Officers leaned over screens flashing warning signs. A senior officer turned at the sound of the door and frowned. "Don't tell me she's volunteering," he said. "She's clearly a civilian. Look at her." A younger officer added, "She probably hasn't touched a stick in years. This is a Raptor, not a toy." Sarah walked past them without a word, straight toward the man behind the main desk. When he turned to face her, the color drained from his face. It was Colonel James Whitfield, the man who had once sat across a table from her 12 years ago and told her, in a calm and reasonable voice, exactly what would happen if she did not sign the report the way he wanted it signed. He was the man who had built his career on the wreckage of hers. "You," he whispered. "You're Mitchell. The one who—" "There's no time," Sarah said, cutting him off. "Open the hangar. Now." For a long moment, nobody moved. Then, slowly, the room parted around her. Inside the hangar, Sarah moved fast. A technician working on the backup F-22 looked up, doubtful. "This jet is next generation," he muttered. "She won't keep up." Sarah said nothing. She climbed into the cockpit, strapped herself in, and felt her hands remember a language she had spent 12 years trying to forget. The canopy closed above her. The radio crackled to life. "I can't hold it. It's going down," the young pilot's voice cried through her helmet. Sarah's voice, when it came, was calm and clear. "Listen to me. Follow every move I make. I will get you home." A shaky voice answered. "Yes, ma'am." The jet rolled onto the runway and lifted off into the sky. Sarah pulled alongside the crippled F-22, close enough to see the young pilot's white knuckles gripping the controls. "Talk to me," Sarah said. "What's your name?" "Lieutenant Alex Reyes," the young man answered. Sarah's chest tightened at the name. Reyes. She thought of Daniel, and for a moment she could not breathe. But there was no room for ghosts in a cockpit with a dying jet 10 feet away. "Alex," she said steadily. "I need your altitude and airspeed." 9,000 feet. 210 knots and dropping. "Copy." "What's your fuel state?" 30%, falling fast. Sarah's mind moved quickly, calculating the danger. A fuel loss this fast meant something worse than a simple engine failure. It meant a structural problem, the same kind of problem that had once destroyed Daniel's jet 12 years ago. We're bringing you down slow, she said. Match my speed exactly. Not a knot faster. Copy. A pause. Am I going to die up here? Sarah's throat tightened, because she had heard that same question once before, from a man she loved like family. She had not been able to save him. This time would be different. No, she said firmly. Not on my watch. As they descended together, Alex spoke again, quieter now. My father used to say that. He used to fly. His name was Daniel Reyes. They told us it was pilot error. Sarah's hands went cold on the controls. It wasn't him, she said. And it wasn't me either. What do you mean, you? I was his wingman that day, Sarah said. I've carried the truth about it for 12 years, because I was scared. Because the people above me made sure I was scared. There was a long silence before Alex spoke again, his voice breaking. He used to talk about a pilot who was the best he ever flew with. He said if anything ever happened to him, she would tell me the truth one day. I didn't know I would meet you like this, Sarah said, her eyes stinging. Neither did I, Alex answered. Tell me everything, please, when we're down. When we're down, she agreed. The two jets banked together, losing altitude fast. Below them, a long stretch of empty coastal road ran beside the beach. We're not going to make the runway, Sarah said. There's a road below us. Long enough. If we can't reach the airfield, that's our option. You want me to land a fighter jet on a road? I want you to trust me, Sarah said. I've done harder things with worse odds. The wind picked up suddenly, pushing both jets sideways. Alex's voice cracked through the radio. I just lost my left engine completely. Sarah's heart pounded, but her voice stayed calm. Rudder full right. Don't fight it, guide it. I've got you. They dropped together, the coastal road rushing up fast beneath them. A few cars scattered along the road as people ran clear. Sarah watched a family push their children away from the road in time, her stomach twisting with fear she did not let into her voice. Talk to me about your altitude, she said instead, keeping him focused. 600 feet. Still falling. You're doing exactly right. 200 feet. Ease left now. The jet wobbled, the wounded engine screaming. 50 feet. Hold your nose up. Trust the aircraft. 10 feet. Flare now. The crippled jet's nose lifted at the last second. Its landing gear hit the road in a shower of sparks, skidding, shaking, and finally slowing to a stop. Smoke curled from the wreck, but there was no fire. Sarah circled once above, watching closely for any sign of danger. None came. Alex, she said, her voice cracking with relief. You still with me? A long pause, then a shaky, disbelieving laugh. Yeah. I'm here. Sarah's eyes filled with tears she did not bother to hide. For 12 years, she had carried the weight of one pilot she could not save. Today, for the first time, that weight had lifted enough to let her breathe. She landed her own jet minutes later, legs shaking as she climbed out onto the tarmac. Emergency vehicles raced past her toward the coastal road, lights flashing. The ground crew chief who had doubted her before takeoff ran over, staring at her in disbelief. That landing, he said. I've been doing this 18 years. Never seen anything like it. Sarah only nodded, exhausted. Before she could catch her breath, Colonel Whitfield approached with two security officers behind him. Captain Mitchell, he said, his voice careful. That was quite a stunt. Taking control of a military aircraft without authorization. I'm going to need you to come with me. Sarah's jaw tightened. You're arresting me? I'm detaining you until we understand what happened up there. What happened, Sarah said, is I saved that boy's life with a jet that had the exact same defect that killed his father. You knew that defect was still in the fleet, didn't you? Whitfield said nothing, and his silence answered louder than words ever could. They walked her toward the hangar under guard, past a crowd that had gone completely silent. The same young men who had mocked her earlier stood frozen, their phones lowered, no longer laughing. Inside the hangar, away from cameras, Whitfield finally spoke. "You shouldn't have come back," he said quietly. "I didn't come back for you," Sarah answered. She reached into her flight suit and pulled out a small data drive wrapped in cloth, something she had carried hidden for 12 years. "This is Daniel's real flight data. Not the one in the official report. I kept it because some part of me knew this day would come." Whitfield's face went pale. "You kept evidence." "I kept the truth," Sarah said. "Because you took everything else." A young captain stepped forward from the shadows, tablet in hand. "Sir, I've already forwarded today's flight data to the Inspector General's office. Standard procedure, given the pattern." Whitfield's shoulders sagged, the fight draining out of him. He looked at Sarah for a long moment, then at the security officers. "Let her go," he said finally. In the weeks that followed, the investigation moved quickly. Records showed that the contractor responsible for the aircraft parts had never actually fixed the defect that killed Daniel Reyes years earlier. It had only existed on paper. The truth that Sarah had hidden for 12 years finally came out into the open. Whitfield was removed from his position, and the case became a lesson used across the Air Force about the danger of silencing safety concerns to protect money and reputation. Sarah was offered her rank back, along with a public ceremony. She accepted the reinstatement but turned down the ceremony. She did not want cameras. She only wanted the truth to be known, and the next generation of pilots to be safe. Alex Reyes recovered from his injuries and chose to stay at the base to continue his training instead of transferring elsewhere. He asked Sarah to be his instructor, and she agreed. 6 months later, on a quiet morning, Sarah stood on the same tarmac, watching Alex fly his first solo mission since the accident. His jet climbed clean and steady into the sky, and his voice came calm through the radio. "Nightingale, how does that look from down there?" Sarah allowed herself a small, real smile. "Looks like your father's son," she said. "Take her home clean, Lieutenant." That evening, Sarah drove out to a quiet cemetery to visit Daniel's grave for the first time in 12 years. She knelt in the grass, placed the small worn keychain jet beside his headstone, and spoke softly. "Sorry it took me so long," she said. "Your son is flying now. He has your hands on the stick. You would be so proud of him." She stayed a while longer, letting 12 years of silence finally rest in the place it had always belonged. When she stood to leave, she felt lighter than she had in over a decade. The truth was finally free, and so was she.